So I just wanted to do a video on this, which is the Hope XCR brake. So if you actually look at the caliper down here, it says X2, and it's also saying X2 just on there. So the caliper's actually, I'm guessing, the same. They just put a little XCR logo on there. Obviously the biggest difference is the lever, and this stuff came out probably mid 2021, and it's basically designed for like cross country. It's a lightweight brake. It's not going to give you masses of power, but yeah, it's basically just designed for the weight weenies who want something nice and light. That's why it's got a little carbon fibre lever blade on there as well. I'm not sure if you know some of the old, very early Hope stuff, which was called the Pro Sport lever. And it's basically this kind of design, so I don't know if this is a bit of a tribute to it, but this is what you refer to as a radial master cylinder. So as you're pulling your brake, the piston's basically travelling in that direction. So as you pull your brake, the piston's going to move, and you let go, it's going to go down there. Whereas you look at, this is the old Hope Mini, which is actually empty, there's nothing in there. My little barrel's moved out of the way. Try and get that back into place. There we go. It's gone too high now. But yeah, basically when you would move the brake lever, the piston would go left to right rather than front to back. So that's what they call it in the motorcycling industry, radial master cylinder, if you want to look that up. I think there are some advantages. I don't know if Hope have taken those advantages on this lever. Normally you can fit a bigger piston, so you can have a little bit more pressure going down the lever, and we are losing focus. There we go. There's just a few other changes on this, which I believe when Hope bring out the Tech 4 lever, which is due to be released very soon, they've adapted as well. So one of the things now is that you're getting a hinged clamp. So if we take this bolt out, rather than having two bolts on the lever like a lot of the Hope stuff, I guess that they're saving a tiny bit of weight with a hinged clamp. So you've got that on there, which is nice, and you don't need to press a button like you do on the Shimano stuff to open it fully. So yeah, that's nice. And the other thing, we're actually going to take this brake apart, or the lever apart, and then rebuild it. You've got your hole there as well, so I guess that's for various types of matchmakers, so you can put shifters and stuff onto there, which I think has been the standard since the Tech 3 levers, so not exactly new, but good to have. I think that's really it for the lever. There's not a bearing on the Tech 4 stuff. They've actually put a bearing in this area, but this is just a pivot. So yeah, one of the things is this as well. So if you're familiar with the Hope stuff, this is a lot different. You've basically just got a shroud, and that shroud bolts directly to the lever. So when you take this lever off, you'll see, if you're familiar with the Hope stuff, you'll see what I mean by that. So yeah, we're going to take this hose off. Still got fluid in it. I'm going to try and drain some of the fluid so it's not too messy, and get ahead with the disassembly. So yeah, this is just another thing. When you do buy brakes from Hope, brand new from the factory, they are pre-bled, but the thing about dot fluid is it kind of absorbs moisture from the atmosphere. So after a while, yeah, it will basically need to be done again. This one you can see is quite a lot of air bubbles in there, if it will focus on that. Yeah, you can see them moving in there. So yeah, this is a brake that was probably sitting around only for a couple of months, maybe 2 or 3, and it's already got loads of air bubbles in there. So yeah, probably a good thing that we are stripping it, because we would have had to re-bleed it anyway. So yeah, we're going to get onto the lever now. So yeah, we're just going to grab 8mm, and we're just going to undo this shroud as you would any other kind of 8mm fitting. Just put a bit of tissue down, because I think there'd be a little bit of fluid somewhere. So yeah, once you undo that, there's your lever. And this is what I mean, if you're kind of familiar with the Hope stuff, you will kind of recognise that this is quite a bit different. So you've got your shroud, and then you've got your brass clamp, which you can just probably see a little line in it. That's your insert, and then you've got this, which is your little brass crush washer, which we'll have to replace. So when you look at the normal kind of hose here, it has this extra bit on the end. screw, which would normally screw into the lever. So yeah, this is, I could take this off of here and I could put it on there, so it's all interchangeable. It's not like you have to buy different hose or different fittings or anything like that. I think they're just saving a bit of weight because they don't need this bit anymore. So yeah, that's that bit, which is ever so slightly different. And that means that on the lever itself, you can see that bit's threaded. If that will cause any problems in the long run, yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I don't think it should, but it's only aluminium, that's the only problem. If people start doing that up too tight, or in the event of a crash, you know, how strong is that going to be? So I have to wait and see for that one. So now what I'm going to do is grab some torque keys and undo the top cap, take the rubber diaphragm out. Where's my torque keys? So it's probably going to be that one. So it's just your standard, this one's a T10. Do it that way, be a bit more visible, already at the best of angles. And then I'll just make it a little bit higher, it might help a bit, don't get into the light. Am I in my own shadow here though? I don't think that helped much, but I will. There we go. I can undo this. Pretty much standard stuff as you would expect. This is a brand new brake, so I haven't actually undone this yet, so I don't know what to expect, but from the part number and from looking at it online, this is the same as a tech-free, so this actual cap would fit on a tech-free lever. It's just got the branding on there, which is a good thing. Once again, means you don't have to buy loads of different stuff to fit the different levers. It's all interchangeable, and therefore this little rubber diaphragm, if you're used to the tech-free stuff, will look very familiar. I might have that on the wrong zoom setting. There we go. So yeah, so we've got a little part number on there, but it's covered in fluid, so I can't actually see it. But that's not really important anyway. So that's your innards of the lever, pretty standard stuff once again. Then what we're going to do is we're going to remove this, which is a bit of a pain because it's one of those screws with a little dot in the middle. So it's not a standard Torx key. So you're going to need like a special bit for that. So we're just going to go and grab that. Yeah, so if you're not familiar with this kind of stuff, that's the Torx bit that you need. It's a T10, but it's just got a little hole in the middle. Just doesn't want to focus on it though. Maybe I'm a bit too close. There we go. So it's something that Hope added on the race levers. I'm not quite sure why. It's a security bolt so people can't undo it, but I don't know. So yeah, that's just gonna go onto there, and they're gonna undo that. And that basically means that the pivot now is a bit, you can move it, it's free to move. That just works as like a clamping bolt. So as you bolt that through there, it just pushes on that black pivot. And then what I'm going to do is take this pivot out, which requires a little bit of a specialist tool. So we've got a set of Nipex pliers, which are 4921A01, if anyone's kind of interested in working on these kind of things and wants to know what size they are. So yeah, it says on there 3 to 10mm. And what you want to do with these is just open it a tiny bit. You don't want to wrench that little clip open. If you can see that little clip there, we're just going to spin it around so you know what we're on about. Just pull it enough just to get it over that little black pivot. Because if you pull it too far, you'll just basically bend it out of spec. And then when you try and refit it, there we go. So that's your little clip there. And I would guess that this pivot is now free to move. There we go. I'm just going to push it with something. pivot, and then you can see there's a little hole actually in there for that security bolt that we just took out earlier to sit into. So we grab that, wherever that is, there we go. And you know which one it is that sits in there. So now what we have to undo is this, which is your reach adjuster screw. You can see your lever's kind of only held on by that little kind of a rod inside of there. And I'm guessing that it's the same as all the other stuff, which will be 2mm. Yeah, it's 2mm, which is pretty standard on all of them. Mono mini lever is a 2mm as well. I'm just going to turn that clockwise. It gets to a point where the tool's actually kind of butted up to the lever. We can't push it in any further. I don't know if we've got enough to twist that off. I think that's turning the whole thing. See, I'm going to need to grab an Allen key for that one, which is a 2mm. Did I get the right one? Yep. So, it's quite important that you use the right Allen key, because the little kind of hole in the centre of these is very, very thin. And obviously if you use the wrong one you could split it quite easily, which is what happened on a lot of the minis. I don't know what it's focusing on, maybe the tissue paper. Yeah, so once you've undone that, your lever will come off. And there's your carbon fibre lever blade. I'm guessing that carbon fibre does quite well against dot fluid. So yeah, that's not corroded. And then you can see into there, what we have is basically it's kind of a mixture of a mono mini lever and a race. If you've ever seen the Race Evo stuff, it's kind of a mixture of that. Actually has a proper circlip in there. So yeah, I'm going to undo that security screw first. There we go. So it should be that the circlip's actually holding this all on. So I'm guessing like this hasn't got any resistance on it, so it's not actually doing too much of a job. It's probably just there if the circlip fails. Now this circlip that's in there is a bit of a different one to the little baby clip that we had, so we use a different set of Nipex pliers with them. So we've got these ones, which are 12 to 25mm. Obviously you can buy whatever ones you want, but just make sure you can fit them in kind of small gaps. So can we get onto that? There we go. So I'm guessing as I pull this circlip out, the piston's gonna, so I'm just gonna put my thumb over that rod and give it a little bit of pressure to push down on. Yeah, it's fine. It's all falling out, but pop you over there. Little circlip. And then you've got this, which I can't remember what they call it, but yeah, it's the same as the race system. Retaining plate, I think it's called. It's just a bit of metal with some rubber coating on there. And then there's your reach screw adjuster. And then you're left with basically your piston. So if we can pull that one out. And there you go, there's a totally stripped out XCR. It's really nice machining on this one. There we go. And there's your piston. So yeah, it's a bit unusual. Oh, the spring doesn't click in, so that's a difference already. That just kind of sits on there. It doesn't doesn't click in there, doesn't really hold it. So yeah, got a little hole for the fluid to travel through. Oh no, there's no fluid that's going to travel through there, but it has got a little hole in it. Not sure why that is. And yeah, I was thinking that the piston, because it's a radial master cylinder, I thought that the piston would be a little bit bigger. But this just looks the same size as a lot of the other pistons for the other Hope brakes that I've seen. The unusual thing is this bit here, this white bit, which kind of feels like a piece of plastic. I'm not really sure why they've done that. Could be for weight. Usually that would be kind of machined out of metal, I guess. So maybe if they just machine the metal part down a bit more and put a bit of plastic on there, that's a bit lighter. I don't know how, once again, that's going to do in the long run. Might be problematic, but who knows. Oh, and that's something else. Where's that lever that I had? So if you ever get a problem with these levers where the piston is stuck in there and it's seized, so you want to be able to pull the piston out of this area. So if this was, there we go, where we put the other piston, we've lost it. I'm very good at putting stuff on a bench, there we go, and losing it. So if you imagine this was the proper piston, it would sit basically like that inside, in there. And then as you press the lever, it would compress it. So if you ever had a problem on older brakes where the piston is actually seized in there, all you'd have to do is kind of clean it and try and lube up the area, and then you could actually push the piston out and it would pop out this end. But when I'm looking at this lever here, in the future, if a piston gets seized in there, you can't access it. You can't push from the other end. There's no hole. So that could be something that could be a bit tricky in the long run. But I'm guessing due to the price of these brakes, it's probably going to be a long time before we see that. I'm guessing people would probably look after them. They're about £250 per brake, so the set is like £500. So they're not exactly cheap. But yeah, that's just something that I kind of look for, because I'm always doing the used kind of stuff. Never really buy new stuff. Can't really afford it, to be honest with you. So I'm always buying the used stuff and trying to repair it. But yeah, that could be a bit of an issue. And yeah, we're just going to rebuild it. I think what I'm going to do now is just going to grab the proper piston for this one and just show you them next to each other. You can see the differences. So here you can see the two pistons. This one's from the XCR and this one's from the original Mono Mini brake. Or not the original, is it the original? Yeah, this one. These ones that are just incredibly robust. Yeah, that's from the Mono Mini, the original. This is from the XCR. You can see the piston's actually shorter. But I did do a quick look online and the part number for the rubber seals is exactly the same. So would probably, the actual diameter of them is exactly the same. Yeah, obviously on the old ones as well, the spring actually clicks on there. But I would imagine if the piston is shorter, wouldn't that move less fluid and you'd have less power? So yeah, I'm not too sure on that. I'm just making an assumption on that one. And as you can see, obviously on the older one, I mean, I'm not going to weigh them, but it's probably heavier just for the kind of length of it. But you can see obviously there's more metal on the piston, whereas if you use that kind of plastic system you can save a bit of weight, and maybe that's what they wanted to do, because these are a set of brakes that are designed to be lightweight and appeal to people in that market. So yeah, we're just going to put this back together and that will be that. Oh, and this was the other thing as well. So this is a tech-free cap. I just wanted to show you that it fits absolutely perfectly on there. So yeah, if you have your little rubber diaphragm and you put your tech-free cap on there, it's a perfect fit. Which I kind of like that stuff. Interchangeable stuff just makes life easy. If you don't have to have loads of different spares, that would be great. And yeah, and then that's just Basically the Tech 3 and the XCR one. The only difference is the kind of top of them. It's just got a bit more of a kind of angular design to the XCR one. So yeah, we're definitely going to get back to assembling it this time. So yeah, we're just going to get on to reassembly. You're going to obviously take your piston and your little spring, and then your spring can go in first. Drop that down into there, and then drop your piston. The little lug goes into the little recess on the spring, and then that's going to sit in there. Then what you need is your retaining plate. So it's basically three things that you need. That, which is your reach adjuster screw, your retaining plate, and then the security screw. I've actually gone through this a few times, and that security screw will screw all the way into there, even without any of this stuff on. So there is a certain way around that you have to do it. I did think that you could put the circlip on first, but that actually got in the way and then ended up sitting on top of the screw. So the way that I believe it should be done is this way. So we're gonna, it's a bit hard to pick up this stuff, thread that through there, and that's essentially your lever attaches to that end, and as you push on the lever it just pushes the piston down. So that's going to sit on there. The two little holes are going to line up. It's a little bit tricky, and then you're going to push down on this rod, and then you should be able to get this screw in, and then the screw will butt all the way up. Let me try and get this on the camera, but it's going to be a bit tricky. The tool that I have doesn't have a magnet on the end, so it's a little bit hard with the screw keep falling off. You can see that. So we're pushing down on that lever so that that black plate doesn't push against the screw, and then that just nips up. Kind of went out of shot there, but that's how it sits, like that. And we just put the circlip on there. Have I got any cotton buds? I wanted to clean that up a little bit, but I only got dirty ones. Just wanted to clean that little black plate up a little bit, covered in fluid. So yeah, then you're going to get your little circlip and your circlip pliers. And that's just going to go in place. There is a kind of, the top end is round and then the bottom end's flat. On the circlip it's probably going to be very difficult to see on the camera, but the top end's kind of more polished looking, and the bottom's a little bit rougher. So I don't know if they've done that on purpose actually to make it look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So obviously you want a rougher end at the bottom, squeeze that together, and then there's a little recess in there. It's a little bit tricky because, as you can see, the bolt head gets in the way, so you kind of need that gap between the circlip to sit either side of the bolt, I think. So I think it's only going to go on one way, and that's kind of in that order. So yeah, I do like to kind of press down on these circlips just to make sure that they've clicked into place properly. Sometimes they can sit a little bit above where they need to be. Yeah, it looks alright. Yeah, definitely on that end. You can kind of see it's not a perfect circle, it's gone underneath the little recess, so you've got a nice straight line there. Do that a few times and make sure the circlip's not coming off. And that's basically the hardest part, I think. Then you're going to grab your lever. We've got a thread on the back of the lever right there. Get that out of shot. And obviously that little hole needs to line up with this thread, so I might be able to turn it a few times. It doesn't give you much space on this kind of newer design. Does that turn? Yeah, it does. Yeah, I don't think that method's working, so we'll just use the Allen key, which I have no idea where to put. Just going to thread that through. Helps if the lever's the right way around. I normally wouldn't use ball end Allen keys on this, but it slots in quite far. Should be good. Sometimes they slip, or they get a little bit old and then they're not really that good anymore. Try and get that lined up nicely. There we go. Just a little bit too far in. It's kind of making me go out of shot a lot. And there's your reach adjustment. And then all you've got to do is put the black pivot back on. Take your little security screw out. That drops in. I have to kind of wiggle the lever a little bit, line it up. And then it pokes out just to probably about 5mm or so. And there's your kind of lever action. Then what you've got to do is put a little clip on the end. There we go. And it's same as before really, you don't want to open this up too much, just try and kind of push down on it and just about get it over. There we go. They do kind of spin and flop around, but it's fitted perfectly. And then what we have to do is basically there's a hole there, but there's also a hole in the, can we turn that? A bit slippery. See if we can line that up on the camera. It's like impossible to turn it with the gloves. But yeah, there's a hole in the pivot, so you've got to kind of make sure that's open inside. No chance of turning that. Shame that they didn't put like an Allen key recess in the top. There we go, is that better? There we go. I don't know if you can see on the camera, but we get to about there. And there's actually a hole for the screw to go into. I'm just going to take the security screw again and pop that in there. Obviously if you don't uncover that hole you won't get the screw in there, so I'm just going to nip that up a little bit. That's basically it really. Obviously the top cap's very easy to get on there, but yeah, that's your, I was going to say Shimano then, but that's your Hope XCR lever. Let's give that a little bit more reach. So yeah, there it is. Put the top cap on and bleed it and away you go. And yeah, I just wanted to say, once you, obviously when you're taking it off, always replace these little washers, because the idea is that they crush once you tighten them. So if you try and reuse them, then you've got to basically use more torque on the bolt, and you could end up doing damage. So yeah, we're just going to stick a new washer on there and just show you how it connects to the lever. It's very, very simple. It goes into there, you're just going to hold that. And we're going to bring this shroud forward. And we're just going to wait for it to click, I think. There we go. And that's line the threads up. And then all you need to do is work out your orientation. You know, if your lever's on the handlebar like that, and your piston's going to be, like your caliper's going to be at an angle, it's not going to work. So you've kind of just got to work out where the right place is for your lever and the hose and everything to line up properly. And then when you've got that, you can kind of hold the hose in place and then basically tighten that up. You don't need a lot of force on them. and generally you will feel that little washer get crushed, and then you know when to give up really. But yeah, there we go.